This week, we revisit some Godot games I've featured in the past, we take a look at the last state machine plugin you'll ever need, and one of our featured games this week is awfully reminiscent of Breath of the Wild, at least visually. I'm StayAtHomeDev, and it's This Week in Godot. This week, the Godot 4.4 Beta 2 was released. There's not a whole lot of super newsworthy things within that release, but it's good to see that it's progressing. What I do have this week are some updates from some games that we've already featured. If you're keeping tabs on new games being made in the engine and how they're developing, the first game, Dawnfolk, was actually called something else entirely when it first came out. This could have even been over a year plus ago, but the release date is fast approaching. It's actually on February 13th. It's really cool to see a game start out as just a random post of, hey, I'm working on this, check it out. Now this is a full release. It's got a publisher. As close as a couple days ago, there were 30,000 wish lists. And a big thing about this channel is supporting these developers and supporting people along this process. So give some love to the creator of Dawnfolk, Darren. It's a really cool game, actually. It's described as a charmingly dark and minimalist survival city builder. I've actually done a really good job at marketing this. I see it in a lot of places. Another game that has popped up numerous times on this channel is Katana Dragon. And I wanted to bring attention to this because they have a Kickstarter coming up. If you haven't seen this game, it's a really interesting looking, almost Zelda-esque, but mixed with voxel visuals. You can actually try the demo out right now. Part of the advantage of following these projects from the early beginnings and all the way to a release or a Kickstarter is seeing how that process develops. So if you're interested in how a Kickstarter works, you're thinking about doing a Kickstarter yourself, pay attention to what Katana Dragon is going to do, pay attention to what other games have done. In fact, as games from the engine start to have these Kickstarters, I do want to bring attention to them. I think it's a really good way of sort of taking notes about what's being done on those Kickstarters and how you can implement them when you're ready to do a Kickstarter yourself. The page looks pretty solid, and I'm really curious about how this is going to do. And it really hopefully inspires you to say, hey, you know what? I can do this too. Now, if you're less worried about marketing and more worried about the actual coding, be sure to check out the free coding courses from this week's sponsor, Coddy. Coddy is a practice-driven website for learning how to code. You can get access to free or pro-level courses and coding challenges across major coding languages like Python or C#. There isn't GDScript, but the Python courses will give you a great foundation that can then be migrated over to GDScript pretty quickly. You can learn about object-oriented programming, how to use lambdas, or jump into C# and follow the very basics like variables, operators, or flow statements. The course screens provide guidance and a script editor side by side. Challenges ask you to write new code, and the site will check your results, providing you XP if you're correct. If you're new to programming and don't know where to start, Coddy is definitely worth checking out to see if you like the free courses, with even more to offer at the pro level. Like last week, I wanted to feature some more content creators on YouTube specifically that you guys can check out, especially if you're interested in what they're working with. Again, this channel is all about support, showing love for people making games within this engine that we enjoy and that we love to use. The first creator is Majikayo Games, and I've actually featured this creator before. I didn't realize it. They were the creator of this procedurally generated 3D dungeon plugin that I featured sometime last year. If you're interested in first-person shooters, especially Half-Life sort of based shooters, there's a lot of really useful and interesting tutorials on this channel. The one that popped up for me was actually this, handling walking up and down stairs, which is a common thing within first-person shooters. They do a really good job of explaining it. You know, it's funny. I remember watching this video over here because I was doing some sort of prototyping, but definitely a really cool creator, and check them out. Now, this next creator you probably already know because they have as many subscribers as I do, Godotneers. Whenever you see a post about, YouTubers I should follow, that people ask that question, Godotneers always pops up. And it's because the tutorials are just really, really solid and really well done and really, really well explained. You'll notice that these are like hour-long tutorials. These are not your bite-size, I'm going to do it and jump out in 5 minutes. These are in-depth, really great tutorials about GDScript, particle systems, a lot of things that as a beginning game developer, you're going to want to know how to do. For instance, the Godot component tutorial that they have is really solid. But the reason I'm bringing up Godotneers is because they're the creator of the state machine and state charts in Godot. And that's related to our plugin of the week. So if you've ever tried to make anything moderately complex in the Godot engine or in any game engine for that instance, you're going to run into state machines. And state machines can be done in a lot of different ways. You can just use code, you can use nodes. I've done my own video on a node-based system, but just through scripting. But then I came upon this plugin. It's called the Godot State Charts. And this plugin is made by the person behind Godotneers. And that video that I talked about is an explanation of how this plugin works. It's another node-based state machine system, but it's just so easy to use, and it just makes so much sense that, honestly, if you're going to make a state machine and you don't want to do it by hand, use this plugin. It's really that good. Once you've downloaded it and enabled the plugin, you're going to have a number of state chart-based nodes that you can add to your scene. It starts with a parent state chart node, and then within that, you can add different types of state nodes. Now you might think, okay, I'll just add a state and then I'll add another state, but it can get more complicated than that. You can have compound states, you can have parallel states. For example, in a player controller, you might have movement states, and you also might have, say, crouching state. Those are really two different systems there. You can move, but you can also crouch. You don't have to be moving to crouch. That's where a parallel state allows us to run both of those state machines simultaneously. Your individual states can be added with what's called an atomic state, and then you add a transition that moves to another state based on an event. And you can name that event yourself over here on the right side. Within your scripts, all you have to do is get your state chart, send that event, and then you're automatically going to move to that new state. I'm not going to go into super detail because the video by Godotneers does a really solid job, and there's really no point in repeating that. To me, the useful aspect is everything is really well organized. It's very easy to do parallel states and compound states. You can also do history states if you're familiar with what that is. And the signals that you would normally have to code yourself are already built in. So you can already do an event received, whenever that state is entered, exited, physics processing. It's really all there. So if you need to do a state machine, check out the Godotneer video, download the plugin, work with it a little bit. I'm telling you, it's really, really nice. Before we jump into our 5 games this week, I read your comments about adding hobby games. I think it's a really good idea, and I'm going to think about whether they get intermixed on the weeklies or if we just do a whole new video. Right now, I'm kind of shifting towards a whole different video, maybe every 1 or 2 weeks, and seeing how that goes. I think that distinction between this is a commercial game and then this is something that somebody's just kind of doing on the side as a hobby, those aren't really the same categories. So to have 2 different videos, I think is a really good idea. And I really want to showcase everybody's work, not just someone who has managed to get all the way to the point of releasing a game on Steam, because that's a very small percentage. Sometimes that support for the hobbyist is going to get them to the point of releasing it on Steam or console or whatever you want to release it on. An ancient race known as the Omega must ascend a perilous tower, all while burdened by a mysterious metallic sphere. Each leap demands extreme precision, with floating platforms, relentless obstacles, and surreal landscapes testing both reflexes and willpower. Losing the sphere spells doom, forcing you to retrieve it or risk abandonment of the sacred ritual altogether. Each fall becomes a learning experience, and every success a step closer to celestial transcendence. The question remains, can you balance patience, skill, and an unyielding determination to complete the ritual and earn your place among the stars? Number 2. Erupting from the soil, you become the Necroflora, a many-headed hydra with an endless appetite for destruction. In this strategy roguelike, you'll feed on enemies, gather mana crystals, and unlock bizarre mutations to overwhelm the 4 kings. Choose among 5 unique plant types, each offering distinct powers like freezing foes or creating toxic clouds. 10 flower abilities and 30 mutations allow endless ways to spread chaos across 10 varied biomes. Between short but deeply satisfying sessions, the final stats page lets you revel in just how thoroughly you've reclaimed the land. Number 3. Traveler's Hymn offers a top-down, grid-based journey across a vast open world plagued by a mysterious curse. You'll explore over 20 hand-designed locations, battle more than 100 unique creatures, and gather an array of items ranging from equipment to ingredients for hearty meals. A hunger system adds tension to your adventures, forcing careful decisions on when and what to eat. By uncovering scattered clues and helping locals with their troubles, you inch closer and closer to solving the land's dark secret. Featuring roughly 4 to 5 hours of gameplay, it's a lively mixture of exploration, combat, and community that challenges you to brave the unknown. In Replicube, you craft code to replicate 3D voxel-based objects. No single method is right, so as long as the final shape matches the reference, you're good to go. Solve puzzles, climb leaderboards by optimizing for code size or efficiency, and then share your work on an in-game forum wrapped in nostalgic, old-school style. A free edit mode lets you unleash creativity in 3D voxel designs or 2D images, turning the game into a playground of sorts of experimentation. From exports and common 3D formats to animated GIFs, your creations are yours to share both in and out of the game. If you love coding puzzles, art, and community collaboration, Replicube offers a vibrant space to create and compete. And before we get to our last spot, congrats to last week's winner, Piece by Piece. Be sure to vote for your favorite in the comments to have them included in this year's Godot Game Awards. And like last year, just because a game doesn't win its week, it doesn't mean it can't be included in the awards.
Number 5.
Embark on an epic idle RPG adventure in Raid Auctus, assembling a raid party that grows in strength with each level and upgrade. With 20 unique classes, each boasting its own skill tree, and character levels reaching 200, you'll never run short on ways to optimize your team. Equip better gear at the blacksmith, gain permanent upgrades through knowledge transfers, and conquer over 40 punishing raids. Even toxic party members can't dampen the thrill of unleashing your squad's true potential. Create a strategy that reigns supreme and become the ultimate raid master.